Hey everybody, we are live here in Washington, D.C. Thank you everybody for joining the channel. This is Robert with Gold Silver Pros for this edition of the Sunday Cowboy Metals live stream. I'm outside, we're going to have a bit of wind noise, so stick with me here as we get through it. I promise it'll be worth the while, worth the wait. We'll give a couple minutes for everybody to jump on in here, and I'm not going to be able to see the show controls, guys, so if you're in the chat, ask your questions. I will get to those afterwards. Not in the live chat, but in the comment section of the video. Behind me, as you can see, is the National Mall. This morning, brought the family out. We got a good look at the Lincoln Monument. We got a look at the World War II Memorial. We got a good look at that giant obelisk right there behind us, which is a tribute to the Masons of this country, I believe, who built that, and many other landmarks in our country. It's part of Masonic culture. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. Are we going to see more suppliers holding back silver from the market is the first question. I think that is entirely possible that we do. Although I don't think there's a concerted effort. Although there is some scuttlebutt going on behind the scenes for some influencers and some market participants, big market participants, to talk about that. I don't think it's going to happen right at this moment. All right, I'm going to flip around here, guys, before we get into the content of the show. And you're going to see, hopefully, the White House behind me. That's about as close as we can get. We're at the Eclipse Circle garden, or lawn, if you want to call it. And behind me is a white fence. You cannot get to the White House. So we're going to just walk along the outside of this approach. Got some segwayers behind me. We're going to get right into the show. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Again, this is Rob Keats, Cowboy Metals Live here in Washington, D.C. Apologize for the wind noise, but warm front came in, warmed everything up, which is nice. We're really getting the wind noise. Hello everybody, thank you for joining. If you have a question, put it in the live chat, and I will answer it in the comment section below afterwards this evening when we get back to the hotel. Alright, so subjects for today, we're going to start off with the May Massacre, because that is the title of this video. As I take a seat here for just a moment. What is the May Massacre, you ask? It is because 10 years ago, in May 2011, silver got absolutely hammered in the futures market. Absolutely hammered in the futures market, and dropped the price, I think, from about 50 bucks to about $34 or so in the span of a day or two. And that was the massacre. That's when silver had hit, or retouched on its all-time high of $50. A lot of optimism 10 years ago that silver had finally broken free from the masters of the futures market. It had not. They pummeled it down. So what's going to happen is there are a lot of people in celebration or in remembrance of that 10-year anniversary of the May Massacre in silver are going to buy the heck out of physical. So if you want to get your physical, you may want to put in that order the first couple of days of this week, because on May 1st, a lot of people are banding together. Wall Street silver backers everywhere are going to take that metal right off the market. So expect that to occur here in a few days. That is the Silver Massacre. Just open a chart of silver, look back 10 years, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It is a line straight down, which is not a normal market. It is an intervention in the market. Do you think Reddit, Wall Street Silver, all members buying physical asset silver on a monthly basis will impact the market? I have joined them. That's a really good question. Yes, I do think it will affect the market. I think it's already affected the market. In fact, my very next story is going to talk exactly about that. So I'm so glad you asked that question. So for those of you just joining, we talked about the May Massacre of 10 years ago as I broadcast live from Washington, D.C. at the Eclipse Gardens between the National Mall and the White House. And the second story is regarding an LBMA released document. LBMA runs the OTC markets in gold and silver there in London. And they released a document called The Spotlight on Silver Investment. And this came out maybe a week or two ago. And I've been saving this one for the Cowboy Metals live stream. And I've been saving it for the May Massacre because I know a lot of people are gearing up on May 1st to buy that metal. I want to read you a quote from page 6 of this document. I'll put all links in the show notes after I get back to the hotel this evening. So stay tuned this evening for that. Since we're live, I can't do it on my phone. But this is an LBMA release document titled Spotlight on Silver Investment. And here's a direct quote from that document. This suggests that demand in iShares, that would be the SLV for those of you who are unaware, Demand in the iShares SLV continued at the frenetic pace of late January, early February. It would have only been a matter of weeks before London's existing stock had been used up. In other words, if the buying that we saw in SLV, that we saw the last day of January and the first 2 business days of February had continued, before the end of February, London would have been bankrupt to silver. That's how close we were. So to answer the question that just popped up in the chat, yes. If people come on May 1st and they buy a whole bunch, especially if they do it in SLV, yes, it could bankrupt out the London market. Although I would suggest that they know that this is coming and they probably made preparations. They probably bulked up on their silver. And I wouldn't personally suggest buying the SLV. I would say just go buy silver at your local outlet and get your physical. But that's how close we were in late January. That's an admission on an official document from the LBMA right off their website. Again, I'll put a link to that document in the show notes when I get back later this evening. Third story for today, as we walk around the Eclipse Garden in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. Thank you everybody for joining on my live podcast, is Peter Schiff and his Perth Mint certificate program, which has come under a lot of fire. The Perth Mint certificate program is an unallocated certificate program in which people can buy a certificate, a gold certificate, and it basically gives them access to the unallocated Perth Mint gold. Peter Schiff sells these. Peter Schiff recently got called out for selling something which is a derivative unallocated product and saying it was safe. This is on Twitter. Schiff came out on his podcast, which you can see on YouTube, on his YouTube channel, and I'm sure in other locations as well, where he talked about this. And he said, he got down to the point of saying it's backed by the Australian government and it's also insured by Lloyd's of London. So it's perfectly safe even though it's unallocated. And he said, you know what, there's high demand right now and you could get your gold, but it'll take a little while to get your gold. He got called out for selling unallocated gold, basically saying that if you're buying gold there, it's not yours, it's not allocated and segregated, and therefore what that means is that you may not be able to get it when you need to. And then he came out in a second podcast. Again, you can see this on his YouTube channel, and I think on his website, Euro Pacific Capital as well, I believe. He came out a second time and said it's conspiracy theorists who are basically trying to, create discord and demonize the certificate program from the Perth Mint. In reality, all we're doing is calling him out for selling unallocated. I actually wasn't the one doing it, it was somebody else. But it's interesting because in our Golden Quarterly, which if you guys are interested, you go to the website, you subscribe to the website, and you can download a copy of that Golden Quarterly as a subscriber. In the spring edition, which was just released 2 weeks ago, we talk about unallocated programs. And actually last week talked about this on the live stream as well. I put it up on the live stream. I usually don't share the Golden Quarterly because it's a paid subscription, but I put it up there. The 3 things that you need to do to make sure if you're getting into a stored gold or silver program, how you can protect your rights and protect yourself. Go back and watch last week's live stream for that. It's got full recommendations on how to do that. I do not recommend the Perth Mint certificate program or anything like it. I think it's wholly unsafe and not fit if you really want access to physical. And if you want a derivative product and you want access to price, speculation, you can do that, or you could do the GLD if you want. All right, last story for today, guys, as we circle the Eclipse lawn in front of the White House, which you can't really see because they have fences up everywhere, which I'll show you here in a minute. The last one is an astounding interview that the head of the CFTC, Rostin Benham, gave at a conference. It was at the Boca V conference, an international futures industry conference, in which he said something pretty astounding. He admitted basically what all the quote-unquote conspiracy theorists had been saying for a long time, and everybody in the industry was denying. He basically said that they had tamped down the COMEX futures market. At the time, the price had gotten close to $30. This was at the aforementioned silver run-up, the SLV run-up, late January, early February. The CFTC, in his words, used all of their active tools, and he delineated all the tools in this interview. And I'll put this interview link, it's on YouTube, I'll put it down there for you in the show notes when I get back to the hotel this evening. But he basically says the CFTC used all of their policy tools in order to tamp down the silver price before it got to 30, so they couldn't get it over 30 bucks. And so they could control the price and the volume of the silver futures trade. He admitted it in just plain English. And he went and delineated all the tools that they have, such as margin requirements and amount of contracts you can have, and all these different tools that they have to control the price. And he said for a fair and orderly market, they needed to control the price. And then he went on to intimate that essentially he didn't see the retail market being, he said the retail market needs to be safe and secure, but then they released a press release afterwards in which they said they're investigating Wall Street Silver and all of the retail silver traders for the activity that occurred, and they're monitoring to make sure that the retail investors aren't basically doing anything illegal in the market. And they're not. They're basically just organizing buying. They're buying it because they want to. There's nothing illegal about it. But the CFTC is looking at the retail traders, but they're not looking at the bullion banks to suppress the price. And he admitted that they wanted to suppress the price anyway because they didn't want the silver price to go above 30. Basically admitting that they've got a top and a bottom on the silver market, and they're not going to let it rise. And this is from the head of the CFTC, the regulator, who's supposed to be regulating the markets to make sure that they're free. But really what it means is that market's only for the big market participants. It's not for you and me. It's not where they want us to be able to influence the price. And thanks for the comments. Reading the comments as I go along. They want to control the price, and they're doing it on behalf of the big traders. They're okay with retail trade as long as it's the big brokerage houses, the big traders. They're not okay if it's the individuals. And that's basically what he said. Again, we'll put a link to that video down in the show notes after we get back. Those are my 4 stories for today. To recap, we have the May Massacre in silver, the massive physical buying that's going to come on May 1st, Wall Street Silver and others. We have the LBMA admitting that last time that the Redditors and others bought up the SLV in February, there were a couple of weeks from bankrupting the entire London market of free available silver. Why? Because it's an unallocated BS market. It's not a real market. That's why. It's all paper. The third story, we had Peter Schiff backing and selling the Perth Mint gold certificates, which is unallocated, no guarantee of getting your gold, not segregated, not in your name, and then saying it's perfectly safe and don't worry about it. And the hypocrisy of that, because he's such a big gold and silver proponent, gold especially, and people on Twitter calling him out for that. And lastly, Rostin Benham, head of the CFTC, admitting that they manipulate the silver market. They want to keep it under 30 bucks, and they do it to benefit the big market traders. And when he says retail traders, he's meaning the big retail trading houses, not you and me, because they issued a press release shortly thereafter, basically saying they're watching the Redditors, investigating the Redditors, and investigating all the small guys buying physical silver, buying SLV, because that was a danger to the market. And those are actually the terms he used. It was dangerous to the market because it wouldn't be a free market if we did that. I mean, God forbid that the average Joe wants to buy silver or wants to take possession of silver and has to be regulated by the CFTC, protecting the interest of the big banks and the big financial interests. Again, in his own words, I'm paraphrasing, but it's in his own words. A pretty amazing admission by the head of the CFTC. Man, we've made it almost all the way around. And I've got a question here. Where is the 1,000 ounce bar shortages? Until then, this is all, basically saying if you don't have shortages in 1,000 ounce bars, it doesn't matter. I pretty much agree with you in terms of the ending. I think we're at the 11th hour. I do think the retail premiums are because the retail market's being bought out. Some of the mints are intentionally not printing additional coins and bars. And this is causing retail premiums to go up while there's still availability in 1,000 ounce bar. I do agree 1,000 ounce bar demand needs to get taken care of, needs to be taken off the market before you have the big run on the physical that everybody's been talking about. That may occur though because people are getting together and buying the 1,000 ounce bars, and they're buying the bigger issues of silver. They want to buy out all silver. And I've been privy to some of these conversations behind the scenes of people wanting to take delivery on COMEX and wanting to buy the big bars, big business owners. And I think in addition to that, there's going to be additional demand coming to the mines. People are going to buy straight from the mines. That's coming as well. I think those are the next steps in the silver market. I think the retail blowout's happened. I think May 1 is going to be a big, big event for the physical silver market. Yeah, them and us, we see them now. That's exactly right. We see them now. All right, guys, if you have questions, I'll take questions for a few minutes, as well as I can see them on my phone. Where is Eric Sprott? Sprott, yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure what his plans are for, is he going to buy off the COMEX? But he would be a guy that could do it. My last 1,000 ounce bar was manufactured in 2020. All right, good to see. Where you got your 1,000 ounce bar from, by the way? Did you take it off of COMEX or did you get it from one of the retailers? Not many retailers sell those. What happened May 1st? Good question. We're talking about the May Massacre. If you look 10 years ago on your silver chart, 10 years ago, silver was hammered down on the COMEX in a straight line down from 50 to the mid-30s. That is the May Massacre 10 years ago. We're approaching the 10-year anniversary in which people are going to buy. Wall Street Silver is gearing up. They already did a raid, I believe, on the 20th, if I remember. They're going to do another one, and you're going to have a lot of people behind the scenes buying big amounts of silver. How will SOV contribute to offering? I didn't get to see that last question, that last comment. How will the SOV contributing to the spot price, I think it was? I don't think it does. I think the SOV is a distraction, and it's a vehicle in which you're never going to get silver unless you have 50,000 shares and you're an authorized participant. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother with the SOV. But what the buying in the SOV did in January, February showed the weakness of the London market in which all that silver is stored, and essentially showed that London didn't have the silver. And that was an admission on the LBMA's website. Post that link later today. Any other questions in the chat, guys, before we wrap up? There is no rule of law. CFTC comes out and basically says we're banks or puppets. That's exactly right, 100%. What does the G79 nations make silver a strategic metal that will become unobtainable? It's entirely possible because for the space race, you need a ton of silver. And so I imagine at some point, they're going to make silver really hard to get in retail form. It's probably working into their benefit that people are buying all the retail silver right now, because eventually I don't know if they're going to allow it to be offered. There's so much silver they're going to be demanding. At some point, they may put rules and restrictions around that. Plenty silver comes in eBay. Just be careful of counterfeits, because there are counterfeits. How big of a wild card the potential crypto bubble burst for precious metals? I really don't know. It is a big wild card in that people who are buying cryptos instead of precious metals would probably reallocate to precious metals, assuming they could find it. We'd have to see that first. And I think the big crypto bust is probably a little ways away anyway. Do you agree the retail outlets can stop pricing metal? I don't know if that was a question about the retail premiums. Yes, the retail outlets could reduce their premiums. It could reduce their premiums, but I don't think they're going to, because it's really hard to get in those smaller sizes. And that's not gonna stop until the silver demand stops. How much silver will be pulled off the COMEX in May? We don't know. John Adams was on my program about a week or two ago, and he said maybe 80 million, 100 ounces, 100 million ounces. I agree with him. It's entirely possible that 100 million gets pulled off. We'll just see how many stand for delivery and how many they can actually deliver. I don't believe their inventory numbers, but we'll have to see. All right, any more questions, guys? We got 233 viewing. Live stream from Washington, D.C., right here in front of the White House. As I walk around the Eclipse Garden in front. I don't see any more questions in the chat. I'm going to see if I can get one last picture of this White House for you guys. And I'm going to show you the security they have. In fact, let's walk backwards. That's the security right behind me. That guy in the van is a police officer. And that is the fence in front of the White House. And I'm going to try to get a shot of it over here. I don't know if you can see the very tippy top of the White House, but you can't see much else. That's about 3 fences right there in front. Anything sent out of place in DC, I would just say the security is really heavy. I mean, that's the White House several hundred feet back there and you're not getting to it. So, lots of fences in front, difficult to get to. You can't really see it. The National Mall is open though, it's really cool. We went and saw the Lincoln Memorial and all that good stuff. But I would say for 3 or 4 blocks on either side of the White House, it's pretty much locked down. You can get to the garden though. The garden area is really nice. All right, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up. That is this edition of the Cowboy Metals live stream, live from Washington, D.C., here right in front of the White House at the Eclipse Garden area, where we have a lot of people gathering now that's warmed up. That's right, fences work in DC, but not the border. Good comment. They do work in DC, man. You're not getting anywhere near the White House. Lots of guards and everything. The rest of the areas are open. A lot of museums are closed. We went to the National Holocaust Museum. It was closed. Some of the other are closed as well. So we're just kind of, you know, we're just enjoying the National Mall. You can do that, at least. You can see a lot of the architecture. There's some cool stuff to do, but DC's still on lockdown for the most part. All right, guys, thank you so much. Appreciate you joining the live stream. I'm going to go ahead and tune out and go spend the rest of the day with the family and go see some more sights. It's been my absolute pleasure. Robert, Gold Silver Pros. Until next time.